I've quoted this exchange on the podcast before, but it bears repeating for this episode. On a shift once, I was sorting out some issues and helping solve a problem when a staff colleague said to me, "But you're freelance. Why do you care so much?" I was, of course, a bit taken aback, to be honest, because what I was doing didn't seem unusual. I was really just doing my job, the one I was paid to do on that particular day. Looking back, it probably says a lot more about the other person than it does about me or freelancing in general. But there is sometimes a lack of respect for the thousands of us that do the shifts that staff can't or won't do, and sometimes hold newsrooms and media organisations together. And also, freelancing as a career can be misunderstood and undervalued, especially by people outside media. I'm David Spencer, and welcome to the latest episode of the Media Mentor podcast. This is a series about media careers where I share advice that I've given hundreds of people over the last 20 years in my support sessions with the Media Mentor. This episode features one of my favourite ever colleagues and staff members, Carl Hartley. You may know him from doing the news on Radio 5 Live or across the BBC network. We first worked together when I was running a news team, and he was a rock on my freelance squad, if you like, doing out-of-hours shifts and always receiving feedback and guidance in the way that it was intended to help him grow and be better. Carl also works at the University of Leeds as a lecturer in broadcast and digital journalism. So on a recent trip to the university, Carl showed me around the studios and we sat down for a bit of a chat. As ever, when you get two industry people together like that, it was a long chat. And you'll hear more from Carl later in this series. But I wanted to share part of our conversation about freelancing because it really resonated with me. And I think it might help you if you're unclear about how to go about it, or maybe you've just graduated and don't really know how freelancing can work. Carl, thank you so much for being a guest on the Media Mentor podcast. One of the things that I want to talk about is when we first met and you were producing at TalkSport, and I think we had a conversation about, you do journalism stuff. You were like a gift to me of someone who could do the shifts, but also the shifts that we had were pretty rotten.
Well, you say they were pretty rotten. I was actually producing overnights at the time. Yeah. So it was actually a bit of a bonus to go to 7 o'clock in the evening and finish at 2 in the morning for a time. I've always thought you earn your position. I do. I'd come into TalkSport as a producer. I was doing the overnights, but I wanted to do more on a news reading. I felt that's where my career was going. But I didn't expect then for the news editor, you at the time, to say you're on breakfast news, because I feel you have to earn, you've got to show that you can do the job. And actually, it allowed me to not make too many, but make a few more mistakes that I wouldn't be making when there's more people listening. It's a bit more relaxed in that kind of evening position. So that was a bit of a bonus. But again, it goes back to how I started. I would travel from one end of the country to another just to do the gig, because it was getting my stripes, building my hours if I was a pilot. But there is the fear as well, and I think we'll probably touch on this, of saying no to things, because if you say no, that opportunity doesn't come round again sometimes. So there was a little bit of a fear of that. But the main thing was that, it gave me that opportunity to do it and hopefully show you that I could do the job. But it was slightly different for me as well, because I never wanted to move down to London. Because
I remember you telling me that.
So I would never, and I would have helped and come down and done a shift and things. And I remember doing a talk radio shift on Eamon Holmes's programme, and I got it in the belly, that feeling in your belly.
He was lovely to work with, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, I liked him. Yeah, he was a lovely, lovely guy. And I remember him saying afterwards, going, not many people tell me they love my voice, but he was like, it was nice to hear you on air. And I wonder if that was because I was slightly different.
I did lots of rotten shifts, worked overnights. Those TalkSport shifts I was doing before I was news editor, I wouldn't have got to the news editor role if I hadn't been in a TalkSport environment, working from sometimes 5 in the evening till 4 in the morning, doing those kind of shifts. I wouldn't have got those opportunities. So you earned your stripe. Absolutely. You sort of earned that right by doing those kind of shifts. There is a balance, though, to that overcommitting. And I wonder, having value in yourself as a product, as a brand, essentially. Why am I hiring Carl Hartley for these shifts? Because I trust you, like your voice, know you're going to do the job well. So that has a value. It's getting that and being able to survive.
So there is always that fear that you say, no, you're not going to get the job again. Someone else is going to come in. And since coming to the university and reflecting, I think it has had an impact on me. And I'll tell you why. So now when you're at university, you get a long time to do certain tasks. If I'm not completing tasks every single day, I feel I've not done a good job that day. And I think this goes back to, as you were saying, taking on too much, or as a freelancer, you need to bring the money in. So it might be that, I give you examples of long days. I would do a news reading shift at TalkSport on Monday, Tuesday. I would get the first train out, so I'd be there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd sleep on the sofa at work. You shouldn't do.
A lot of people slept on that sofa.
Yes, a lot of people slept. We won't even look at what the sofa looked like. And then I would jump on the first train out of London. I'd go and do a presenting shift at Silk in Macclesfield, and I would do the mid-morning show, so I'd get up there to do 10 till 2, and then I'd shoot across to Manchester and do a shift at Bauer. And my day, I'd been up virtually all night, and that was what freelancing is about. So you take those opportunities that come. But I think partly because I feared saying no as well. And you do have to get that balance. But what I'm seeing with students now who are coming through the university, they do value themselves a lot more. And I value myself now as well. I will say, actually, there's a point where I have to go, I don't know. I can't do that, and I'm really sorry. And amazingly, I've said no, and then they come back to me in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. So I think students now, they have to get the right balance, because some of them go to me, I'm not going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I only want to do 2 o'clock. And I'm like, you've got to do the miles. You've got to do those early shifts. You've got to do the shifts that nobody wants to do first, before then moving into getting the more glamorous shifts.
I hear from people within the industry, there are sometimes graduates who come out and will turn down even jobs at a certain level because they feel they are already necessarily above it. And I think this is the balance. So you should definitely have value in, if someone says, I'm going to give you £75 for that shift, you actually work that out and you're going to do that over 8 hours. Firstly, minimum wage considerations have to be taken into account. But
Absolutely.
Your value, you need to know that in terms of what you charge or what you're paid for the work that you do. But also that you might have to do, as I call them, the dog end shifts. There is going to be times when you have got to get up early, do overnights, but earn that right.
Yeah. Earn the stripes, like I was saying at TalkSport. You said, would you mind doing the late evenings into the early mornings? And yeah, I would do that. I'd been working in industry since 2000, and I think we were working together around 2014, 2015 time. Yeah. So I'd been in the industry a long time. Doing those lates, I felt, I'd already done a bit of that, but I didn't feel that because I wanted to prove my worth to you and to the station, and it was a big national radio station. I valued the fact that you were taking a chance. You were taking a chance on me, and every time I went out to do a bulletin, I was representing TalkSport, I was representing myself, but also you as well, because you'd taken that chance to give me the opportunity to do the bulletins.
I think for newsreaders, just while we're on it, the experience of being a presenter is really valuable. I think you're a better newsreader if you've done presenting, because you're not ruled by the script so much. It really gives you great skill. I think that's a really valuable bit of experience. So it's something people should consider. But also that pathway, we can't say, do what I did. We can't have that conversation. You can't tell your students that. But I still think there is a certainly look at where you can get that experience that allows you to learn. You might be lucky enough to get straight into a fairly high-profile journalism role, but you also want to make sure, I mean, at 22, 23, no matter how good you are as a student and as a graduate, whatever degree you finish up with, you get a first, you're not ready.
You're only ready when you do it. Yeah. You know, it's like driving, isn't it?
Yeah.
You only learn to drive once you're behind the wheel. I passed first time, and I think I'm a poorer driver than somebody who passes the second time. Or I was a poorer driver than somebody who passed the second time.
You've driven a bit since.
Driven a bit since, but the driving, you're aware, you're learning things all the time, and it's exactly the same as that. And actually, no one's journey is exactly the same because things do change. As you're saying, the stations, there's not as many stations. I can turn round to them and say, when I was down in Wales and I was running the radio stations down there, I wanted to go freelance. I wanted to be back in the Northwest. That I applied to Talk Sport, but I took the jump to be freelance because I knew there was all these radio stations that I could approach. So if somebody says to me, you know, how did you get into industry, or you went freelance, you know, how easy is it to freelance? I could turn around and say, it was quite easy. I went from a full-time job. I took that risk because I knew that I could get some work from the wireless group, so Tower FM, Wish FM, at the same time as getting stuff from Bauer. I knew I could get some stuff at Talk Sport after we'd talked and things like that. So my journey now, the industry has changed. So asking somebody, you know, how did you get into industry? It's a different world that we're living in now.
But I think that mindset of being freelance, I always used to say pompously, I'm self-employed, not freelance, because I felt freelance was kind of, freelancers, as I called them, were dismissed and had a bit of lack of respect. Certainly felt that at Sky News when we were holding the machine together.
Yeah.
But there is freelance work. There is a portfolio of work out there for students or people looking to move into the industry that is like working at those different radio stations. It's out there, but you might be doing a bit of social media, you might be doing video, you might be doing a bit of radio. It's different types of work, but it's definitely out there. I mean, there's huge amounts of content, so there is lots of work out there. And look at it that way.
And doing that freelance work is the networking and you're doing the networking while being paid. So again, a lot of people say to me, you were brave to be a freelancer, you know, because you don't know where your next check is coming from. You don't know where the next payment is. And I was like, to an extent, right in the early days, maybe. But actually, I know, anybody who knows me knows that if they book me, I will turn up, I will do the job and not get anyone in trouble, and I will not disrupt. And I think if you work by that, I've built up all the contacts through freelancing, then that is a safe place to be.
Someone said to me when I thought about taking a job earlier on in my freelance career, sort of around 2010s, why would you take a job when you've got this brilliant brand? And I was like, brand, I'm David Spencer. But I kind of got the point. They were outside the industry, but they said people are using you for work because of what you bring. And if you take that job, you then become that job. Now, I'm not saying don't take jobs. It's just actually it suited me to be freelance. And I think for a period of time, if I took a job as head of news at News UK, it gave me something that, that freelancing gave me that opportunity. And then that role gave me experience that then I take to other stuff. I think if it's right for you, if you can cope with spinning those plates, doing the freelance thing of managing your portfolio of work, not worrying about some blank days 2 months ahead because you've not been booked yet, it can be firstly fantastic, but it can be brilliant for the networking and the experience.
It's networking, and also as a freelancer you are always the hero. When you walk in that newsroom, you're there to save the day. So somebody's rung in sick, the news editor is so pleased to see you, and also you don't get involved in the office politics. You come in, you're always that person who comes in, does the job, and then leaves. And everyone's like, oh, he's a great guy because It allowed me to go and do whatever I needed to do, or he covered that shift there. You are the hero.
Yeah, you're holding it together. I mean, it's brilliant advice. Definitely that message about freelancing. We all have different careers. We have different paths that we've gone on. But that value to choosing certain work, not being, not necessarily dismissing something because you're above it, but also valuing yourself as well is a really important lesson. Carl, thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much for talking to me on this podcast, but also doing some of those dog end shifts, as I say, and for being here in the University of Leeds in this fantastic environment. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you to Carl for his insight and sharing his experiences. As I mentioned, we had a long chat, and this section about freelancing was something that I'm really passionate about. It's a great way to build your experience and get confident with your skills and what you're really good at. As we heard with Bella on last week's podcast, sometimes you also learn what you don't like to do and discover what you know you don't want to do in the long term. And that can be just as valuable. That's it for this latest episode of the Media Mentor podcast. To find out more about the one-to-one sessions that I offer, visit themediamentor.info. All the latest media jobs are also on the website, and I share them as I find them on the WhatsApp channel. Thanks again to Carl for looking after me when in Leeds and for a fab interview. Thanks too to Mrs. Mentor for looking after those job pages on the website, and to sound designer Josh Sommer, who wrote this music for me. Thank you for listening, and remember to click follow on your favourite podcast player to keep up to date with the latest episodes, and if you have time, please write a review if you've enjoyed listening.